Okay, so everybody sees the homework assignment up here, right? It's also on the syllabus. The only thing you need to do for Tuesday is read the excerpt from Plato's Gorgias, right? It's only about 9.5 pages. But because all I'm giving you is about 9.5 pages of reading to do, right, I want to make sure that you're applying the same process that we're using when we have the writing assignments as you're reading it, right? So I'm not expecting you to turn something in, but I do want you to try to look for interpretive context, right? I want you to try to pull out implications. I want you to try to see what Plato's underlying assumptions are, right? Look for binaries and strands. So all of that stuff. Now, does anybody have any questions about anything before we start today? Everybody's good? You're good, Gary? All right. Okay, so I want to start with a brief writing exercise today. What I want you to do is write a descriptive piece. And this is how I want you to do it, right? So I want you to write a description of this classroom. I want you, as you are doing so, to avoid evaluative words. Now, does everybody understand what I mean by evaluative here?
Can you give an example?
Pardon?
Can you give examples?
Sure. So essentially words that indicate how you feel about something, right? Whether you think something is good or bad, right? So words like beautiful, ugly, right? Impressive, boring, things like that, right? Anything that indicates a feeling about something rather than a description of it. The other thing I want you to try to do is use concrete rather than abstract words. Now, what we mean by concrete are words that convey a specific sensory impression. Words that are abstract are words that refer more to like a concept, right? So try to avoid these kinds of conceptual words and try to use words that are as specific as possible, right? So if I was to give you a list of words here, say plant, rose, flower. Which of these is the most concrete and which is the most abstract?
Rose. Concrete.
Yeah, rose is the most concrete. It's the most specific, right? Good. Which is the most abstract? Plant. Yes. And flower falls somewhere in between, right? A flower is a kind of plant. A rose is a kind of flower, right? So try to be as concrete as you can in your descriptions, right? So does anybody have any questions before we start?
What kind of wood is this?
I have no idea if it's even actual wood.
I'm just saying my mom.
Yeah. I get that you want to be specific because that's what I just told you to do, but I can't help you there.
I'm just
Sorry.
saying my mom.
I imagine whatever kind of wood it is, it's probably fake.
I thought you was like randomly wanting to know about the table. The table.
Okay, so you guys can go ahead and get started, right? Just, look around the room, look at everything in the room. And I would also say try to pay attention to things that are intrinsic to the room, right? That are still here when we get up and leave, not things that we brought with us. Keep at it, everybody. I'll be right back. 2 minutes, guys? Okay, time's up. So finish the sentence you're writing, and then we're done. Does anybody else hear like a persistent hissing sound?
I thought that was just me. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably the heat.
Zoom
But-
around, I won't think.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, we get to deal with that for the next 45 minutes. So yay. All right. So let's do the same thing we did last time we did the free write about education, right? So what I'm going to have all of you do is read your piece in turn, right? And I want you to listen closely and take notes on what you hear in each other's pieces, right? So we're going to try to compare across each of your pieces to see what kind of persistent themes we see emerging. So who wants to go first?
I will.
Okay, yeah, Gary, go ahead.
I put composition class is a clean room for students. The description of the room is like all classrooms that have rows of desks and chairs, but do not have a great deal of students attending. There are 6 rows of 2 desks together with 1 chair at each desk. The professor has a podium, projector, and a writing board at the front of the classroom. The classroom also has clean white walls and another board on the other side wall of the classroom. The classroom has brown floor. There are 5 windows at the back with only 1 entrance. This class is made for the regular division of education.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Okay. Who is willing to read next?
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead, Gia.
As you walk in the classroom, you see 5 brown desks sitting up against the wall below a whiteboard that never gets used. There are 15 desks people can sit at with an extra desk in front of them to ensure social distancing. There are 15 blue chairs with cushions in them for comfort. Once you sit at a desk and look to the front of the room, you'll see a board to the left of the other whiteboard that does get used. This board beside the whiteboard has 14 papers stuck to it. Most are flyers, but there is a map of Georgia. To the right of the board is the teacher's desk and podium. The teacher's computer is actually in the podium. On his desk sits antibacterial spray and hand sanitizer along with paper towels. There are stick-looking things behind the teacher's podium in the corner of the room. The teacher's chair swivels and has wheels. That chair is also blue. There are 5 windows in the back of the class. All 5 have blinds on them, some open and some closed. The floor has squares on it and is white and marble looking. There is a tiny lectern that sits in front of the teacher's desk.
All right, thank you. Just for the record, what the stick-like things back here are old maps. Anybody else? Who wants to go next? Yeah, Ron, go ahead.
The classroom is made up of blocks that have been painted white. There are two writing boards, which one is on my left side and one in front of the classroom. The floor is made up of tiles with colors like white, gray, and black. There's another board that is smaller and it has paper on it as well. The table is made up of wood that has metal to hold it from falling.
Okay, thank you. And Elizabeth.
This room is located on the second floor of the English building. The room contains 30 desks and 15 chairs. In this classroom, there are 5 students and 1 teacher. When walking in the room, there's a whiteboard to your left and right, but the one to your right is not really used. There are 5 windows and they all have blinds on them, and some are open, some are closed. The walls are cinder block painted white, and the floors are a tan tile. There is a bulletin board with literature papers and a map on it. The teacher has a tall blue chair to sit on and a tall white and blue desk to lecture from. There is a projector for videos or presentations. The students' desks are brown and black, and their chairs are blue or black. In this class, students do exercises to help them write.
Okay, so what I'd like you to do is look at the notes you've taken on each other's readings here, right? And look for, first, consistent themes and contrasts, right? Look for things that several of you seem to have commented on, things that maybe seem at odds with each other that a couple of you commented on, right? And then think about what the purpose of this room is and try to cancel out the things that look like they're just noise or might not be relevant, right? So think on this for a moment. When you've got some stuff, just feel free to start talking.
I feel like majority of us mentioned those 2 boards.
Okay, yeah.
And then the floor, white tiles.
Okay, yeah. A lot of you talked about the tile floor. Some of you described it as one color. Others broke down the colors, right? But yeah, okay.
The projector.
Okay, almost everyone mentioned the projector, right?
That board have push pin board.
Yeah, we got the bulletin board here, right?
Board in there. Yes. Your podium.
Yeah, okay, there's the podium.
That's the word. I want to say that's the word for it.
Table.
Okay, yeah. The tables, yes.
Like this is not like the windows.
Yeah, pretty much everybody mentioned the windows, right, and the blinds. So let's break down some of these descriptions now in terms of how we're using and actually experiencing the room, right? So let's start with these 2 boards, because this was something that a lot of you noted, right? What did you notice about the 2 boards?
None was used.
Yeah, one of them looks like it is never used, right?
Right.
What's it?
Or it's how the projector is.
Yeah, the projector's oriented towards this one, right? This is the screen above this one.
And all our desks look this.
Yeah, everything in the room is oriented towards the front, right? So that whiteboard seems weirdly out of place here, right? It's like what do we even need this for?
Right.
So Why do we think it's there? Like, why might it be there?
And heck, like maybe like the teacher would want to move their classroom around maybe?
Yeah, if I wanted to orient the class this way, right, I could. But if we look at where everything else is in the room, does it seem like it would be easy or practical for me to do that? Yep, the desks are already pointing front. The projector's pointing front. There's a little screen up here. The podium's over here, right? So everything here is designed to focus your attention front, right? Now what about these desks and tables? If we wanted, say, to have everybody rearrange themselves into a circle with the desks, right? How easy would that be in this room? Well, for one thing, we couldn't with social distancing restrictions, right? We couldn't do it safely right now. But even if we wanted to, these desks are kind of heavy and clunky and loud to move around, right? There are people who do that in this building.
Yeah, I was about to say, there's also a lot of desks in here.
There are also a lot of desks in here. Yeah, there's a lot of space occupied by desks, right? So that's actually a good observation here. There's not a lot of empty space in the room, right? Right, empty space, or what we call negative space, is often just as important as what we fill the space with, right? You'll often hear people who specialize in photography talk about that, right? So, yeah, there isn't much empty space, at least not on the floor in this room. So, if everything seems here to be kind of oriented frontwards, what kind of teaching style did whoever designed this room seem to expect?
The teacher be like the center of attention.
Yeah, the way this is oriented, right? It looks almost like you're supposed to be paying attention to me, right, to what's going on up here, right? So, what about things like the podium and the chair? How much do these things seem to get used when we're in this class?
I mean, not so much the chair.
Yeah, I use the podium, right? Do I talk from behind the podium much when we're actually discussing things in class? No, yeah, usually when we're talking to each other, I come out from behind it, right? And I hide behind it when you're doing something by yourselves. But yeah, I've never used the chair, right?
That chair looks not like anybody uses it.
No one actually uses the chair, right? So the reason I want to have this discussion is because I want to think about this in terms of the picture that you analyzed for your last homework assignment, right? What a medieval classroom looked like and how that is similar or different to what a contemporary university classroom looks like. And by contemporary in this case, I guess I mean built in the 60s. This building was built in the 60s. Yep. Not much. I mean, we can actually see, though, right, like that there are a couple of things in the room that are relatively new, right? There's the computer in the podium. There's the projector pointing up front, right? Although it seems to be kind of jury-rigged with a pipe, right?
Yeah.
That's so funny to me.
I'll look at that when people started mentioning the projector. I finally looked at it.
Yeah.
The pipes.
It looks kind of ridiculous, right?
It doesn't look like a regular projector.
It looks rednecky.
Let's say that's rigged right there. It has a zip tie.
Yeah. But I think one thing we can think about here too is why do we have these relatively new pieces of technology in here, right? When the physical space itself hasn't been updated in 20 or 30 years, right? What does that suggest about the administration's educational priorities and what they think is important? The physical space or technological accoutrements? Yeah, there hasn't been, considering, that it took us 60 years to get an elevator in this building, right? that, yeah, it's clear that the physical space doesn't seem to be the priority, right? One thing I'm surprised nobody mentioned, though, what's missing from this room?
The clock.
Yep,
Is that what that was?
that's what the, yep.
I thought that was like where the projector might have been.
Nope, those wires used to be a clock. I mean,
So rare.
so, you know, I've been here 8 years, and there has never been a clock in these rooms as long as I've been here. But, yeah, there would have been a clock there back in the long, long ago.
You know what I was surprised everybody was thinking?
What?
How big that door is.
Yeah.
It's randomly
How
big.
tall and
Mm-hmm.
how tiny the window.
Well, people were taller and narrower in 1965. I don't know.
It's for the basketball people.
For the 8 foot dudes coming up in here.
Yes, it was. South Georgia was a land of giants then.
We're only expecting Chicago now.
Okay, so once this loads up, let's look at the picture of the lecture of Henricus de Alemania, which just means Henry the German. Nobody really knows who the hell this guy is. Like, apart from this painting, there's really no information available about him. So it's not we can regard him as kind of like average medieval university lecturer, right? So before we even start talking about the classroom, like in terms of establishing context,
Oh my gosh, it's in color.
what's that?
I said it's in color.
Yeah, it's got colors. yeah. I mean, the book is all in black and white because color printing is much more expensive.
Yeah.
The original painting is in color. So given the context, this is a medieval classroom, right, around the year 1350. What do we know about all of these students, right? What large percentage of the population would have been excluded from the classroom? Yeah, there would be no women in the classroom, right? So these are all men.
I feel like that one in the back looks like, I feel like quite a few of these people look like women.
Yeah, they might look a little, there are a couple of people who might look a little feminine, but I think some of that has to do with medieval dress styles.
And like in the back, the way that dude is looking at, I guess, the other dude, it just looks a little sexual tension right there.
Well, it's hard to convey that kind of thing in medieval art, given the style, but I think, like, what's more important here is, whatever is passing between these two, this little fucker's not paying attention, right? Which those of you who are going to be teachers are going to have to learn to deal with, right?
Can't wait.
I'm a bragger.
Okay, so this would be an all-male environment, right? Now that is an important contrast with contemporary culture, right? In that actually today, most university students are women, right? Mm-hmm. Even like if we look at the way this class is composed, even just the 5 of us here, when everybody shows up, it's 60% women. Yep. So now we've got a 50-50 split, right? So what else do we notice here when we compare what we've got here to, say, to this classroom? What elements are consistent?
Like they're all paying attention to the teacher.
Okay, yeah.
Talking about the teacher.
Yeah, everything is set up here to encourage attention to the teacher, right? And how, exactly? How is the teacher's authority here demonstrated?
Be up higher than
Yeah, the teacher is seated up above. Good.
Keyword seated, he's not like standing.
Yeah, he's not standing.
Yeah,
He's
just
not.
chilling.
He's not walking around. And what else is he doing?
Reading, it looks like.
Yeah, he's reading from a book, right? What does he not have that I have in this classroom?
a computer.
He does not, yes. He certainly does not have a computer, right? Yeah, yeah. Then we would have heard of Henry the German, right? Then we would certainly know who this guy was. What?
Sorry, but
No, go ahead.
is that a student like looking up to him beside him? Because I couldn't really tell.
He's paying attention because everyone else has the book. And the people who are not paying attention, they don't have the book.
Okay, yeah, we see a lot. Yeah, a lot of the students do not have the book out,
I didn't
right?
even like notice that they were like reading some book. I
Yeah.
thought they were like taking notes
Uh-huh.
while he was like giving a lecture.
Yeah, nobody actually does seem to be taking notes here, right? So what does this seem to suggest the expectation of students is?
Are you supposed to memorize it?
Yeah, that you're going to remember what he said, right?
Yeah. No.
Yeah, we don't see anybody actually, yeah, they're following along in the books, at least the ones who are paying attention are following along in the books, right?
Yeah.
But nobody is actually writing anything down. Is Henry writing anything down? To get to my previous question, what does he not have behind him?
A whiteboard?
Yeah, there's no whiteboard or chalkboard or anything, right? So, does this mean that he has any means, like any physical means of emphasizing important points?
He can just say this is important.
Yeah, he can say, this is important, listen up, right?
Right.
But he doesn't have any means of like putting that up on, like putting it up on the board for you, like shout out in big bold letters, right? Write this down, this is important, right? Now, most of you did catch this in your homework assignment, right? But what do we notice about levels of attention the further we get from Henry?
You go back, the more people that aren't paying attention.
Yeah. The further they are from the podium, the less likely they are to actually be listening, right?
That one guy at the sleep, I feel that.
Right, with his hand in it.
He's just like,
Or
Yeah.
another dude asleep, like comforting on the chair right now.
Yeah, this dude is actually slumping out of the bench, right? You know, maybe he pulled an all-nighter, maybe he's been on a 3-day bender, who knows, right? But yeah, and you get these guys over here and these guys over here having conversations. This person is just kind of staring blankly ahead, right?
Right. So he's like out of it. in another
Yeah.
way.
So we have all these different attitudes, right? So Henry is placed way up above his students in this seat of authority. But how much actual authority does he seem to have within the room?
Not very much.
Yeah. That even given the obvious symbol here of being in charge, it only works on the students who are in the front couple of rows.
Which is weird because they can't even like see. I feel like they can't even see him.
Uh-huh, yeah, they gotta crane up, right?
you can't really see them, you can see more people that are actually sleeping.
Yeah.
They're not paying attention.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, like from where he's seated, yeah, he can't, it looks like, really see the people who are actually paying attention, but he can see the little shits who aren't, right?
Right. And he's not even, well, I mean, we don't know if he's not doing anything about it, but
Yeah,
he's probably.
but yeah, well, he would, you know, is there much he can do from up there?
I wonder if he gets through it to get up there through that little hole at one.
Yeah, it kind of looks like this probably isn't to scale, right?
Right.
Which is fairly normal for medieval painting. Yeah, this is probably an entryway for him to climb up into the podium there, right? So it would be a real pain for him to get down
Right.
and say, smack somebody upside the head because they're not listening, right?
I would just like chunk it, like I just like get like something,
Uh-huh.
chunk it at him.
But what's he gonna chuck out of the book?
That works, right? I feel like now you want that back. Now that you're up.
Uh-huh. So let's see if we can formulate this in terms of that seems to be about X but could also be about Y. Structure, right? on the surface level, what is this picture concerned with? What is it about? What's it a picture of?
A medieval classroom.
Yeah, a medieval classroom, right? So we could say, like, it seems to be about education, right?
Maybe.
Yep, seems to be about medieval education. Because it is good to be specific. But what could it also be about?
How classrooms today look, I mean, not the details, but the people are like today. I'm not paying attention.
Well, let's think about this in terms of just what's in the picture, right? Without having to bring anything in from our present experience outside of it, right? I only brought in present experience to get us to notice what sorts of things are present from and missing in the classroom, right? So, what else could this also be about? If it's not, so it's obviously about education, but what sorts of things are implied here about this classroom?
Not really efficient in teaching.
Okay, could be about efficiency and the lack thereof, right? If we look at the teacher's relationship physically to the students, what else might it be about?
Yeah, he doesn't have really a relationship. He doesn't interact with them.
Yeah, this could also be about connection, right? Or it could also be about authority. So there are these other themes that we can pull out of this, right? Now, I do want to draw this back to your experience briefly, right? Do you guys still have classes that follow this basic model?
Mm-hmm. At 1 at 8 o'clock this morning.
What's that?
At 1 at 8 o'clock this morning. I was like
Okay.
this all the time.
Okay. And you don't have to tell me which classes these are, right? I'm not trying to get ready to call people out or whatever, right? But but so yeah, like the model where the instructor sits up apart and reads from the book is still with us, right? There are still people who do this. Despite, these centuries that separate us from Henricus de Alemannia. And we still see students nodding off in the back rows, especially if it's a big lecture hall, right?
And like they know he can see, they know that he can see them, but
Uh-huh.
they're still
Yeah.
whatever they want.
Well, and I think we might also think about this as well in terms of like the idea of authority, right? How likely is it, given that he can see them and they're still doing this, that he actually has any authority to punish them? He probably doesn't, right? So then what does that suggest about responsibility, the way it's framed here? Whose responsibility is it to pay attention and get the material? Yeah. So yeah, this can also be about responsibility, right? Right. The idea here is that it's on you to get something out of this rather than on the teacher to communicate it to you, right? So yeah, the burden of responsibility here seems to be pretty much entirely on the student to learn, rather than on the instructor to teach. So let's try and look at this along with the rest of the Martha Nussbaum method, because all these things are related, right? There are a lot of ideas here that are closely connected to each other. And when we finished up last time, we were looking at the beginning of the Nussbaum essay. I'd like today to turn to the end of it. This will be page 55. So can I get a volunteer to read for us this bulleted list that she makes. In fact, why don't we let's just go around the room and everybody read a bullet point when I point to you, okay? So we'll start over here. Elizabeth, you read the first one.
The ability to think well about political issues affecting the nation, to examine, reflect, argue, and debate, deferring to neither tradition nor authority.
The ability to recognize fellow citizens as people with equal rights, even though they may be different in race, religion, gender, and sexuality. To look at them with respect as ends, not just as tools to be manipulated for one's own profit.
The ability to have concern for the lives of others, to grasp what policies of many types needs for the opportunities and experience of one's fellow citizen, of many types and for people outside one's own nation.
The ability to imagine real or horizon, the specific issues, stating the story of human life as it unfolds. To think about childhood, adolescence, family relationships, illness, guilt, and much more in ways informed by an understanding of the wide range of human story, not just by aggregate.
Aggregate. Does everybody know what aggregate means? Okay, so aggregate means sort of like accumulated, right? So everything put together. So if you're talking about like, how does she put it? Aggregate data here, right? So you're talking about data that covers like a broad group rather than diving down into individual specifics, right? Okay.
The ability to judge political leaders critically, but with an informed and realistic sense of the possibilities available to them.
The ability to think about the good of the nation as a whole, but not just that of one's own local group.
The ability to see one's own nation in turn as part of a complicated world order in which issues of many kinds require intelligent transnational deliberation for their resolution.
Okay, thank you. So these are the things that Nussbaum thinks you should be getting from your education, right? So take a minute, think about these, and see if you notice any particular themes or connections between all of these.
Does it have to do with like one's own like thoughts and feelings about something?
Okay, well, what do you think?
I mean, like, what she says that needs to be taught isn't like English or like English math or whatever. It's like deeper, like kind of therapeutical classes that, you know, further, I really don't know how to say it. It's like, it's like your thought process and how you think about things and how you judge things.
Yeah, so would it be fair to say, and you know, if this is not what you mean, then tell me, that the how is more important than the what?
How, what do you mean? Like, how
That-
I think about things?
Yeah, like the processes that you're learning are more important than the content.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, and I think, you know, you made an observation here that I think was really pretty smart. I didn't mean to sound surprised when I said that. Yeah, so, do any of these things map easily onto any particular academic subject?
No.
Yeah, so it seems like the particular subjects you're being taught maybe don't matter so much in this model, right? So yeah, that is definitely something that's implied here, right? So good. What else do you notice in this? What other sorts of things does she seem to regard as important, or does she imply are important?
Basic people's life and concern for the opportunities and experience they have as being citizens.
Okay, so yeah, what makes you say this is more about being a citizen than about being something else? It's a good observation. I just want you to unpack it a little.
It sounded like they're looking for some type of ability socially in government or things.
Yeah, there's a lot here that has to do with social skills, right? So yeah, like what sorts of things here does she say that have to do more with kind of with social skills and with social life than with, say, your job?
Ability to think about the good of the nation as a whole, not just of one's own local group.
Okay, yeah, so you're putting the good of the nation above your own personal good, right? Okay, good. That's one good example. What else is more concerned with citizenship or social values than with personal advancement?
The last bullet.
Okay. The ability to see one's own nation, in turn, as part of a complicated world order in which issues as many times require intelligent transnational deliberation for their resolution, right? So thinking not just of the good of your nation, right? But of your nation's place in the whole world, right? So yeah, there does seem to be this notion here of thinking about placement, right? Where do I fit in to some larger whole? And then where does that larger whole fit into other larger wholes, right? So there's a kind of movement from the small or the individual, right, to the large or the global. Okay, good. What else? What other implications can we pull out of this? I think, again, we're sort of thinking along the lines of things that have to do with social skills and thinking socially.
I think the second bulletin, which is like about
Uh-huh.
the equal rights, seems like you don't learn that in school. It's more like yourself and just like, not even like family classes. I know people that think differently. Like me, my mom always says like, you just like don't understand why everybody just can't get along and like, love each other. So I'm like, yeah, like, I really don't care. I like everyone's people, like people are people, it doesn't matter. And
Right.
so I like, that's just me, but also like my parents think differently, my brother thinks differently, everyone
Sure.
thinks differently. And it's just, it's not like the way your parents are, like how you were like raised, it's just you as a person.
Uh-huh.
So,
And I think, like what is this second bullet point asking you to recognize about other people?
How they're different, and like they should still be accepted even though they're different.
Yeah. It's essentially like about accepting common humanity despite difference, right?
Like Gulliver's Travels.
Pardon?
Like Gulliver's Travels.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like recognizing your kinship with the Yahoos, right? Although there's no irony or satire here, right? She this is sincerely meant, right? Well, no, it's like, it's the basis of common human rights, right? Is this notion of common humanity.
Like we all bleed red. Like we all of our blood is red, so we're all the same on the inside, just not on the outside.
Yeah. And I mean, we're all basically the same genetically as well. Most of the biological evidence suggests that race is actually a cultural and social construct rather than a matter of actual biological difference.
Right.
Now, what about this last part of it too? To look at them with respect as ends not as tools to be manipulated for one's own profit. How is she asking us to look at other people?
Not just like,
Don't look at them like you can change them.
you know, or like some people like play people like in businesses, like people will like trick them and like thinking this is gonna happen, but really this is what's gonna happen. She wants someone like tell the truth and not just like treat them like they're something else. Treat them as a human being, like how you want them to treat you.
Mhm. Right, not as something or someone that you are manipulating to make money or to gain some advantage, right?
Like that saying, don't treat someone like how you would want to be treated or something like that.
Yeah, I think the golden rule, right? You know, to treat others the way you would like to be treated, right? So yeah, I mean, that's a pretty basic, widespread moral teaching, right? I think we can actually boil a lot of these points down to some basic, widespread moral teachings. But like, essentially, like what the common thread we're talking about now is, right? Is just you respecting everyone as a human being rather than as a tool or a means to an end, right? Now, how is this different from the way she says technical education and education for profit tends to work? If we look back at the things that she says are taught by societies that are educating solely for economic growth, right? So let's look on page 52 and do some comparative work here. Oh, this is the good marker. There's always a good marker and a bad marker, and I always forget which one is the good marker. So what we're looking at here is that human development model, right? Or what she calls a human development model. Now let's look at the other side of this, the economic growth model, and what she thinks that style of education looks like. So let's go to page 52. Can I get somebody to read for us the first paragraph on that page, starting with what sort of education does the old model of development suggest? Yeah, go ahead.
What sort of education does the old model of development suggest? Education for economic growth needs basic skills, literacy, and numeracy. It also needs some people to have more advanced skills in computer science and technology. Equal access, however, is not terribly important. A nation can grow very nicely while the rural poor remain illiterate and without basic computer resources, as recent events in many Indian states show. In such states, such as
Gujarat and Andhra Pradesh.
Yep. We have seen the creation of increased GNP per capita through the education of a technical elite who make the state attractive to foreign investors. The results of this growth have not trickled down to improve the health and well-being of the rural poor, and there is no reason to think that economic growth requires educate them adequately. This was always the first and most basic problem with the GNP per capita
Paradigm.
of development. It neglects distribution and can give high marks to nations or states that contain alarming inequalities. This is very true of education. Given the nature of the information economy, nations can increase their GNP without worrying too much about the distribution of education, so long as they create a competent technology and business elite.
Okay, thank you. So what do we notice from this paragraph? What does this style of education look like, and how is it spread out amongst the population?
It's not really spread out.
Okay,
It's
what?
more of like to your higher income families and not really so much your lower income families.
Yeah, just as the distribution of wealth is skewed here towards the top, right? So is education, right? What she's arguing here is that these technical, pardon?
Oh,
No, go ahead.
I was just saying that they didn't have any resources to use for education.
Yeah, well, and I think like what she's talking about here is not about kind of like personal resources or personal responsibility, but about the way a state organizes its educational system, right? And what she's saying here is that Gujarat and Andhra Pradesh in India have organized the state in order to produce a small number of highly skilled elites, right? This word elite is itself suggestive, right? What's an elite? What makes something elite?
Class of its own.
Pardon?
Class of its own.
Yeah, I think when we say a class of its own, right? I think that's pretty telling, right? What is one of the ways we define an elite?
Like they're it's really good or like better than others.
Okay, yeah. We tend to define this as the best, right? And if something is the best, if it's elite, can it be widely accessible? Yeah, it has to be, in order to be an elite, it has to remain small, right? It has to remain the province of a tiny number, right? An elite is by definition small. So if you're training an elite for success, right, that means you're leaving the broad mass behind. Now, what else do we notice about the skills that she is arguing a society like this emphasizes, as opposed to the things that she thinks people need to know?
Like technology and science, computer science.
Yeah, technology, computer skills, right? So what does, what do technology training and computer skills teach you to do?
Computer literate.
Okay, yeah. And, so if you're computer literate, what does that mean?
You don't have
What's that?
you don't know
Well, yeah, well, like, essentially what she's saying they're doing, right, is they're teaching a small number of people how to use very complicated machines, right? How to use or how to build very complicated machines. And what does everybody else get?
just like the basic skills.
Yeah, we'll teach you to read, we'll teach you to count and do basic arithmetic, right? But that's all you're going to get. So do either of these skill sets contribute to what Nussbaum argues is that this human development model? Do either of these skill sets contribute to you seeing other people as fellow beings with rights equal to yours, or to think beyond your own personal advantage to what the good of the larger group is?
I mean, not the economic growth side.
No, yeah.
It would because like if you're doing the technical skills, you're gonna think I'm better than people that are just doing like the basic skills because they can't do it. So
Mhm.
you're thinking like you're better than everyone else when really it's just
Sure. And yeah, this is actually one of the things that is happening right now in engineering programs in the US and Europe, is that the people who run these programs are insisting that people in them take more humanities classes so that they get more of these kinds of skills that Nussbaum was talking about, and they don't think of everything as having like machine solutions.
And so they won't treat their people like they are machines.
Yeah, it's like about like not treating people as cogs in a machine, right?
Right.
Which I am not suggesting is something that all engineers do. So, please do not go to your friend who is studying engineering or is like, hey, my English teacher said that you guys all treat people like cogs in a machine. Like, no, that's not what I meant. We're just reading an essay here.
I just meant like educated machines.
Okay, yes.
Like, I don't know, there was this story and one before this one,
Uh-huh.
that was like talking about, we just feed information to kids and like,
oh yeah.
that's.
Mm-hmm.
just basically
I think
how-
I think that's actually something they both have in common, right? Seneca was talking about how there is definitely such a thing as knowing too much, right? That, he seems to argue that the space we have in our brains is limited, and that we may as well try to leave space for trying to answer the big questions about life, the universe, and everything, rather than filling it up with little pieces of bullshit knowledge. And I think Nussbaum isn't necessarily arguing that our capacity is limited in quite the same way Seneca was, but I think that she is arguing that this kind of like just learning facts and skills is detrimental, and kind of stunts our development as human beings. And I think we can see some of that in what she says about history a little further down the page here.
I did that.
What's that?
I said I did that paragraph.
Yeah. Can I get somebody to read that paragraph for us? The after basic skills for many. Thank you, Gary.
After basic skills for many and more advanced skills for some, education for economic growth needs a very rudimentary,
Rudimentary means basic.
rudimentary familiarity with history and with economic facts on the part of the people who are going to get past elementary education in the first place, and who may turn out to be a relatively small elite. But care must be taken with historical and economic narratives lead to any serious critical thinking about that, about race in general, about whether foreign investment is really good for the poor, and about whether democracy can survive huge inequalities and basic life changes. So critically thinking would not be a very important part of education for economic growth, and it has been in states that have pursued
It's okay.
this goal relentlessly, such as the Western Indian state of
Gujarat.
Gujarat, well known for its combination of technological sophistication with docility and groupthink.
Does everybody know what docility means? Okay, so docility means something like obedience.
Oh, both sides.
Finish up.
The student's freedom of mind and that it is dangerous if what is wanted is a group of technically trained, obedient workers to carry out the plans of the elite who are aiming at foreign investment and technological development. Critical thinking will then be discouraged, as it has long been in the government schools of
Gujarat. Yep. Okay. So what is she suggesting here about the teaching of history and economics in a society that's focused solely on economic growth? What do you want people to learn? What do you not want them to learn?
You don't want them to learn the bad things and the discrimination towards all the different races in the past, because it will lead to critical thinking, which you said would not be a very important part of education for economic growth.
Yeah, so you want them to have a fairly uncritical view of history, right? Now, critical, just to isolate, we tend to associate the word critical with being negative towards something, right? That, we're just looking for the bad in something. That's not really what it means, right? Being critical is about seeing all facets of something, the good and the bad, right? Seeing something as a whole and figuring out how those pieces are related to each other, rather than simply picking out things that we think are bad, right? And I think that in a lot of our narratives about education, even right now in U.S. culture, I think that a lot of people misunderstand what we mean by being critical. Looking critically at U.S. history doesn't mean shitting on the Declaration of Independence or being negative about the American Revolution or its purposes or things like that. What it does mean is looking at the complexity of the issues. Yeah, go ahead, Gio. What were you going to say?
Would critical thinking and creative thinking be the same?
Very similar. Yeah, I mean they're very related skill sets. Absolutely. Critical thinking isn't necessarily creative, but it often is. But yeah, so essentially, what kind of worker does the economic growth model want, according to Nussbaum?
One with technical skills.
Yep, one with technical skills, and what sort of personality traits?
Obedience.
Obedience, yep. both things which the human development model argues against, right? That no, you should be asking questions about things.
By the machine.
Yeah,
Going back to that.
yeah. And she seems to think that this model also only benefits a small number of people, right? This obedience is a part of that, right? The elites benefit as long as people are quiet and obedient and don't ask any questions, right? The status quo is maintained. So economic growth models are, again, in Nussbaum's formulation. I'm not expressing agreement or disagreement with it. But she says that economic growth models are basically designed to keep the powerful where they are and to prevent those who are shut out of power, shut out of economic prosperity from climbing the ladder, right? Okay, so we're about out of time now. Does anybody have any questions about anything? We feel that we have reached our capacity and our,
Yeah. My brain's filled with it.
yeah. Well, I mean, is this the last class most of you have for the week?
Beyond that.